So you just got engaged, you're about to start planning a wedding, and you're not sure how to start. First off, a round of applause. Congratulations on getting engaged. It is going to be one of the most exciting times of your life and also one of the most stressful. My name is Victoria McNally. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I just got married on May 1st, 2025. I planned my wedding over the span of almost 2 years. I got engaged July 2023 and we got married May 2025. So that's almost 2 years, but I did that on purpose. So let's talk about your wedding and how I can help give you some tips when you're starting to plan your wedding planning process. But first, here's what I'm drinking. I'm drinking a strawberry vanilla Olipop. Oh, my mic is down here. Watch this. Cheers. Oh, it's good. Okay, before we begin with the tips, I do want to give you a disclaimer here. This wedding planning tip video is not for people on an extreme wedding planning budget. I had money to spend. So just a disclaimer, this is not going to be about how to save money during the wedding planning process. This is about all of the different pointers and tips and vendors that you need to reach out to and strategic ways to make your wedding go as smooth as possible. So, not about saving money. I'm very sorry. I don't have much to tell you there. I spent a fuck ton of money, but I do have tips about how to make it the most beautiful and chill and magical day of your life. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. First things first, when you're starting out, it can be really overwhelming to think about all the different vendors, all the different things you need to buy, the music, the flowers, literally who's gonna be there. So just take a deep breath. There is a way to sort this all out. First thing I did was create a Google Sheet that I shared with my fiance, my mom, and my bridesmaids. And this Google Sheet had several different tabs for each vendor, but the very first Google Sheet was my spreadsheet budget. Now, how I took care of my budget is I had a total overarching monetary number that we've decided on, and I broke down all of our expenses into percentages of said number. On this Google Sheets, I also had all of the prices that all added up into the total price of the whole wedding, and this helped me figure out what vendors were in my budget versus not in my budget when I was getting quotes. Second thing I did was I created a Pinterest board. Now this is going to help you create a vision for the day, and this is also going to help other people realize your vision for the day. Now I feel like you can go into Pinterest board curating either with a plan and idea, or you can just go to browse, and that could be a really great way to figure out what you want to do. Me personally, I changed my ideas a couple of times, and Pinterest helped me with that. It helped me decide what I liked and what I didn't. And I ultimately came down to I wanted a fantasy, moody wedding that also had some spring elements in there. So kind of a moody spring. Blushes, but also dark greens, overgrown greenery, lots of dim lighting and candles. And Pinterest helped me get an idea of what I did want and what I didn't want. For example, using Pinterest, I realized I didn't want linens on the table. That just wasn't the look I was going for. So once you put together lots of different photos that you feel aligned with, you can look at it and kind of get a visual for what are some colors you would like to have incorporated in your wedding. These will be essentially your brand colors for the day. If that sounds over the top or ridiculous, I understand, but me personally, I'm a very type A person, and this helped everyone coordinate. It helped the florist coordinate, it helped my bridesmaids coordinate, it even helped with hair and makeup. So when you have this Pinterest board all together, it will also be shareable. So when you start hiring your vendors, you can send your Pinterest board to each one of them and they will thoroughly appreciate it. In fact, half of them are gonna ask you anyways. Finally, before you get started wedding planning, you're gonna need an emotional support person. So I would recommend getting your best friend, your mom, whoever it is, and just letting them know, hey, Can I count on you to be my emotional support person while I'm planning? For me, that was my mom, and she pulled through, and I needed it the weeks following up to the wedding. All right, so one of the first things that you're gonna do is you're going to ask your bridesmaids, if you're having bridesmaids, to be a part of the wedding. This is super exciting. It gets everyone excited, and it's a really, really great way to honor the people that are most important in your life. So me personally, I had 3 bridesmaids, 2 good friends, and my sister, and I asked them with a bridesmaids box. Now, bridesmaid box is going to be a gift box full of little things and a note that says, "Will you be my bridesmaid?" What I really recommend is actually buying things they're going to use, like actually useful things, because how often are they going to use a scrunchie that says bridesmaids on it? Come on, a sleep mask that just says bridesmaids written across it, that's just not going to be an item that they're going to be all too excited about. So what I did is I put a few items into my boxes. I went to several little boutiques around Austin and had some really, really cute items, all in their favorite colors. And so one of these was a vegan and cruelty-free nail polish, a candle in a scent and color I thought they'd like, a small batch chocolate, and a handwritten card from me letting them know how much I love them and appreciate them, and I would love to have them in my wedding. For 3 bridesmaids, that came out to about $120, which really isn't bad for 3 of them, all being like local non-Amazon items. So I thought that was really awesome. I thought it was worth it, and they really appreciated it. So third thing you're gonna wanna do is get your venue. Now this is a huge decision you have to make. I recommend getting a full service venue that also caters or provides food and also provides optional decor and seating options such as ceremony chairs, tables for dinner, because a lot of venues don't have that shit. Like, you would think that it would be a normal thing to just have chairs for a wedding venue, but they don't a lot of the time. A lot of the time you have to rent it. And you do not want to spend $500 on renting shitty chairs. A good full service venue is going to have a getting ready room, a ceremony place, fresh made food options and a bar, core rentals, optional or included, and lastly, a coordinator that's going to work with you. This made my life so much easier because instead of having 5 vendors for all of these things and having food catered from one place and it becoming cold and then also needing those chair rentals, like, instead of all of that, I had one person that I could email and get all of the answers to my questions. When we walked the venue the first time, we knew right away that that was going to be our venue just because we had such a good feeling about it. But even still, I walked the venue multiple times before the actual wedding day, and this helped me become more comfortable with the walkways, with the rooms. I just recommend it because it'll make you feel more at ease. Next is getting a planner. Now, technically getting a planner is optional, but I will tell you, and I wrote this in her review, so I am being dead serious. Hiring a day of wedding planner, aka like an independent wedding coordinator, was the most worthwhile and valuable way I spent the money throughout the entire wedding. I swear on my life, a wedding planner for the day of your wedding is going to be like having a little fairy in the background taking care of problems you didn't even know existed. Now, a day of wedding coordinator is different than a venue coordinator, right? These are 2 extremely different things, and a lot of people get them mixed up. Rightfully so, because they have the same name. But a day of coordinator is going to be the one to help with the decorations, help pin your dress if some button comes loose. They're going to be where all of your questions go. They're also going to be managing all of your vendors the day of and handling all of that communication. A venue coordinator is not going to do that. A venue coordinator is going to help with the kitchen, the staff, anything that has to do with the venue, but not outside vendors. So that is a critical difference that you should be aware of. Seriously. So I did not get an actual wedding planner to plan out my entire wedding. I planned out my entire wedding, and that's why I'm making this video. But the day of wedding coordinator reached out to me 12 weeks before my actual wedding date, even though I hired her like 2 years beforehand. And that is when we start finalizing all the details together, everything that I've done, all the work I've done, I hand over to her, I present it to her, and she picks it up and carries the rest. I'm one of the few people that can say, I think my wedding day couldn't have been better, and that I can give 90% of the thanks to her. She was magical. So now you know who's gonna help you and where you're getting married. And now you can figure out who's coming to your wedding. I knew I wasn't going to have a huge wedding. I invited 120 people. All those people were family and close friends. And I made it a point to send out the save the dates far before the wedding date. It was like a year and a half out because I knew I was going to be sending RSVPs, which are different than save the dates. Save the dates are going to just let people know, hey dude, I'm getting married. Think about it. Whereas the RSVPs are going to have specific information, the specific day and the time and the dress code and what you're eating. It's far more involved. So I use Canva to create my save the date designs. There's also lots of really nice designs on Etsy, but I'm a social media manager, so it's fairly easy for me to put together a design that best matches what me and my fiance want. What's really awesome about Canva too is that you can order them on multiple different paper options and finishes right on the app. It's like super easy, and then it comes in a really solid cardboard box, all nicely wrapped, and it takes almost no time to get to your house. So if there are any edits you need made, you can change the design and then have it shipped back to your house again. I think I printed out 150 save the dates for about $75. So it really wasn't crazy. A save the date is going to have just a couple of details on there, right? The essentials are going to be, we're getting married, right? That's the whole point of celebrating. It's gonna have both of y'all's names. Then it's going to have the venue name, the day of the wedding. That way people can put it on their calendars and know, okay, I'm gonna be busy that day. I'm gonna be in Texas and I'm gonna be there for a wedding, right? They don't need the specifics yet, but they just need to put it on their calendar. Then you're gonna wanna follow those up with actual invitations with your names, the address of the venue, the name of the venue, your wedding website, which I completely did not start talking about. I think it's important to have a wedding website with all of this information, and you're gonna wanna also put a link to your wedding website on there. Most people send this invitation out a few months before their wedding. I sent it out like 5 months in advance because a lot of people were coming cross country and some people internationally. So I wanted to give them ample time to just understand the details and pick out their food. Now, I, of course, forgot to even mention the wedding website. So let's talk about your wedding website. I use The Knot. It's a free wedding website creator where you can display all of your wedding information on one portal. This wedding website is going to make it much easier for your guests to understand the fine details of the day. On my wedding website, I started with some engagement photos and started fleshing it out with a daily countdown, the venue information, like the location, my chosen dress code, which is black tie, a link to RSVP. I also had a wedding registry on there for recommended gift ideas. And I even put a page for recommended activities to do in Austin for people that are not normally in Austin. And I had a lot of guests that were here for the first time, and so people took us up on those ideas. I also put hotel recommendations. I put a budget hotel as well as a hotel that was close by, as well as a luxury hotel for people who wanted to make this a little bit of a vacation. But really, you can put whatever you want on this wedding website. It's really there to make your guests feel more comfortable going to the location, more comfortable with the idea of your wedding and understanding what they can expect. So now that you have sent out the save the dates and people know that you're getting married, now you can get into the super fun part, which is picking out your wedding dress. Yay! Now I'm gonna tell you something that a lot of people I don't think know, and that's that you might find wedding dress shopping to sound very fun and exciting and it's a girl's day, but I feel like a lot of people don't know that is incredibly stressful. At least for me, I was exhausted and stressed, and I felt like there were way too many options. So just go into this understanding that it might not be the dream wedding dress shopping experience that you've always considered it to be. It's just gonna be more realistic. I'm not saying it's gonna be bad. I'm just saying that there's gonna be a whole lot of emotions, and one of them is probably gonna be stress. Now for me, I searched out a bunch of local wedding shops, so I did not get my dress online. The reason I did this is because I wanted something that I could physically try on. I had a slightly bigger budget for a wedding dress, and I wanted that raw and real experience of going into a shop and having like an associate help you try it on, and you're getting champagne, and the nervous feeling of walking out with your dress in front of your mom and your friends. So I really wanted that experience, so I went with a local dress shop. Now it's really good to go through Pinterest and get an idea of what you like before going in, or else the associates will not know fully what to pull from you unless you have a solid understanding of just kind of like a baseline, right? For example, I knew I wanted something kind of ball gowny, and I didn't want sleeves. And I certainly didn't want anything like a mermaid's dress or anything that constricted my legs. So that helped me a lot. It also helped the associates give me some options, and that's how I found my wedding dress. Now, here is another thing that might happen to you. I don't know how common or rare this is, but it happened to me. When I put on my wedding dress, the wedding dress that I went with, I felt chills, but I wasn't giddy. Like, I wasn't excited and like, I found my dress, this is the one. I did not feel that. I didn't. I felt a wave of nervousness. Like, I stepped out, looked into the mirror, and suddenly everything felt real. It just kind of knocked me in the chest that I was getting married. And that's how I knew that this was my wedding dress. I didn't have this like say yes to the dress decision. In fact, I fist bumped my friend when I realized this was my dress. But it took me a couple weeks to realize that this was my dress. So I actually didn't buy it in store that day. I wanted to sit on it. But goodness gracious, it was a very different feeling than what I was expecting. So it's okay if you have weird feelings around your dress. It doesn't mean that it's not your dress. It might just be that you're processing it differently. Now, as for my veil, I wanted a dramatic, beautiful veil with vines on it. This was something that I had like stuck in my head. I knew I wanted vines, and they actually had one that was absolutely the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. It was cathedral length, and I wanted it so bad. Now, this veil was $1,000. And so I didn't know if I could spend that much money on a veil. I actually waited 6 months after I tried it on at the store to even purchase it. So if you decide that you love something, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tailored, like a veil or earrings, just sit on it, soak it in. I sat on it for 6 months and I still wanted it. And so that was my way of realizing that $1,000 would be worth it, and I have no regrets. Now, when you purchase your veil from a shop, it will take a while to get to your place. In fact, it took my dress months to come in to the shop for me to pick up. And then it took a little while for me to even get to the shop because I was so busy. So once you get your dress, get it tailored as soon as you can. Tailoring takes a little while, and it can also be hard to find a tailor that isn't busy, especially if it's peak wedding season. So do that ASAP. Now, hair and makeup. Actually, this is what I put the least amount of energy in. I just knew that I wanted makeup that was clean and more modern. There was a lot of kind of old-fashioned makeup artists that I saw, but I wanted something that was glowy and highlighted my natural features. And so I found a makeup artist that was great, and as soon as I hired her, I pretty much forgot about it. Like, I don't have much to say on hair and makeup because I literally decided the hair and makeup that I wanted the day of the wedding. It's not that I wasn't thinking about it, it's just that I kept changing my mind and I wasn't sure what was gonna look good on me, but ultimately I still love how it came out. I would just recommend looking at a service provider's Instagram, website, and past reviews very thoroughly, because there are a lot of makeup artists out there and a lot of hair artists out there, and not all of them are good. So I would just really vet them before hiring them. Okay, we have like most of the big wedding stuff out of the way, so we can start like niching, narrowing down into the specifics. So let's start with food, because food can make or break a wedding. I'm not gonna lie to you, make or break a wedding. There are some non-negotiables. You must have a couple different options that are also catered to people that have different diets. For example, I had 3 options. One was beef, one was chicken, and one was vegetarian. And I believe it was the beef that was also gluten-free. This is going to make your guests feel seen and taken care of by giving them these options. It's also incredibly important to ask when they are RSVPing on your website if they have any allergies. Now, this might be difficult if you're catering in, but because I got my food from a venue and they were plated rather than buffet style, I was able to make sure that my guests who included their allergies in the RSVP received accommodations and were able to enjoy their meal. Number 2, you must have hydrating drinks. Non-alcoholic, you must have at least water stations, because people are going to be drinking, people are going to be dancing, sometimes people are going to be hot and outside like mine were. It was a very hot day out in the sun in the late spring in Austin, Texas. So people really desperately needed water. So the bare minimum, water stations everywhere, or water bottles. In addition though, I wanted to have a couple other options. So we also had fountain drinks available at the bar and a hibiscus tea. I think later in the night we also had coffee for people who wanted just a little boost of energy. And the last thing that is an essential are appetizers. Now, I feel like not everyone will agree with me, and that's okay. But when people go to a wedding, they usually don't eat beforehand because they're expecting to eat at the wedding. But first, before they even get to the reception dinner, there's going to be a couple hours in between. There's going to be the ceremony, then there's going to be cocktail hour. And so I highly recommend, I think it's incredibly important to have appetizers during the cocktail hour. This can be a cheese and cracker board. It could be past appetizers. At our wedding, we did sushi passed around, as well as this cute little stuffed cream asparagus puff. I don't really know what they were called, but they were delicious. And so we had a couple options that were being passed around to people who were chatting and getting started drinking. Otherwise, people are going to get cranky and impatient before dinner. Especially with people starting to drink during cocktail hour, it's good to have some calories, some carbs in their stomach while they're layering on wine and beer. Now that we've got the essentials out of the way, we can talk about options that you have. There are a few ways to plan your dinner. The first one is really popular and probably the most budget friendly, which is going to be buffet style. Buffet style is going to be exactly as it says, food set up on the side on tables where people can serve themselves on plates. What's good about this is that people may have more options depending on what you choose. It's cheaper. However, it is going to take longer for half the tables to get their food because they're getting up one at a time in order not to crowd the area. Second thing you can do is plated, and that is what I did. A plated dinner is going to be everyone RSVPs with their specific meal choice and gets served that on a plate directly to them while they're sitting down at the table. Pros to this is that people with allergies or different diets can have very specific meals sent to them, and the kitchen knows what particular guests have different allergies, are gluten-free, or vegan, and it's easier to make accommodations for them. It's also fairly quicker to get your food when it's plated like this. I don't really know why, but that is just my experience. I'm not sure if that's how the kitchen handles it, but I feel like it is faster than buffet style. However, this is going to be a little bit more expensive because it requires servers passing out the plates, and it's a little bit more organized. And finally, you could do family style, which is very similar to how you would eat at home with your family. That's why it's called family style. Basically, what the kitchen would do is they will put each item in a dinner. So for example, the chicken breast, the asparagus, the potatoes on large plates in the middle of the table, and people serve themselves there. And this is really good to increase communication between people that don't really know each other at the table. However, in my experience, this was super expensive. Like, we wanted to do this, but for some reason, it was twice the price of plated. So it's totally up to you, but of course the prices vary based on what dinner style you choose. And then lastly, dessert. I know that it is tradition to have a wedding cake for everyone, but we actually didn't have a wedding cake for everyone. We bought our favorite store-bought cake from H-E-B, and that was what we sliced with a sword, and then no one else got that cake except me and my husband. That was for us. We also saved a bit of money here by getting multiple different dessert options from Whole Foods and Krispy Kreme, and people were dying over the Krispy Kreme. They loved that shit. I didn't realize that that would be the fan favorite of the wedding, but people could not stop talking about how we had Krispy Kreme at the wedding, and it was fairly cheap compared to all the other options. We also got my favorite little tarts that I grew up with from Whole Foods. They're tiny, you can grab them with your hands, and they were just great for the guests. Finally, I actually made the last dessert option, which was a panna cotta with a raspberry top to it. And they were easy to make the night before. Again, saved a bit of money. And sure, it took a couple hours of my time, but people really enjoyed them as well. Now we're getting to the end, but let's talk about entertainment. You're gonna need some form of entertainment, and this is including music. So I do not recommend putting Spotify over the speakers. That I have seen not work out for people. So what I did was I hired a DJ. I also purchased their specific package that included a certain amount of hours, as well as MC services. And MC services is just going to be the way that, you know how a DJ kind of shifts the vibe and kind of introduces you when you're coming in as a couple? That's MC services. It's just kind of the in-between music and like switching from one section of the wedding to another section. That was included in the service. And there were also light setups that were included in that package. And so we bought that package and we really didn't have to worry about it. The only thing that I did when I was meeting with the DJ at first was I let him know that I really was looking for someone that wasn't corny. I've been to some weddings where the DJ is incredibly corny and like trying to force people to dance and making jokes that were like uncalled for. Like, who wants to listen to dad jokes from somebody nobody knows in the middle of a wedding? No one. So I let him know that I'm looking for someone that wants to manage the music, but kind of just be in the background. It's okay. It is okay to just be the organizer, and you don't have to be front and center. And so that's what I was looking for in a DJ. Our DJ was great. He did a great job, literally no notes. He was friendly. I think he maybe took 1 or 2 requests, but other than that, he was just solid overall, and I didn't need to worry about the quality throughout the wedding. It went super smoothly. Now that at the minimum is all you really need for entertainment for a wedding, but we wanted to take it a step further because while I have a lot of dancing fanatics in my family, a lot of people are also older, and so we wanted to give another option for entertainment. And so we went an alternate route. We actually hired a local wizard to give tarot readings and palm readings at our wedding. This was incredibly cool and a really, really great way to offer like a personal activity. People really connected with him. I've gotten readings from him before, and so I knew that he was a really reliable and kind person, and people just flocked to him. They loved the wizard, and it was just so great to have him. We got a reading ourselves, and so people really enjoyed this, and I could totally see this becoming a trend in the future, just having a tarot reader at a wedding. It was so cool. Having at least one form of entertainment though over the wedding is really important. There's going to be a lot of people that don't know each other, and so it could be hard to start conversations. They're in a new place and you're not going to be connecting with them the full day. To get their minds off of the social stress, having some kind of music, DJ, other form of entertainment, drag queen, whatever it is, magician, you can go ham, you can get creative with it, and people love the creativity. Now finally, we're on to decorations. And this was a little bit crazy because I had to make a long list, check it twice, make sure I wasn't missing anything, because there were a lot of different decoration things that I had to keep track of. A lot of people are confident about DIYing their wedding. And that's how I feel about that. I think the idea of DIYing a wedding, especially if you are very skilled at DIY, is a good idea sometimes. DIYing things was one of the more stressful parts of my wedding planning process, even though I love getting creative, and I just don't know if I would do it again. Most of my decorations were rented. So this would be the florals, of course. The linens, even the specific plates we wanted, were all rented. The chairs were already included from the venue, as well as the tables and the linens and the utensils. All of that was included. But I also purchased a couple things as well. For example, I purchased a card box that was really cheap. I also purchased a small sign that said like, "Cell phones off please," right before the wedding. And that wasn't really expensive at all. But there were a couple things I DIY'd and I just don't know if it was worth it. For example, I DIY'd the bud vases with my mom and my sister, my bridesmaids, and they came out lovely. They really did. They came out gorgeous. But we totally forgot them at home. I did not realize throughout the whole wedding, they were not at the wedding. And so that was just kind of a waste of time and energy, and I took a long time to find those bud vases. So that was just kind of time down the drain. If I hired my florist to take care of the bud vases, yeah, it would be a little more expensive, but also they would have been on the tables. They would have been on the tables. Secondly, I DIY'd the seating chart. Now my seating chart came out gorgeous. It was a golden frame filled with moss and gold butterflies. And it came out absolutely beautiful. But the day was so hot that on the way to the venue, it literally melted. It melted apart. The glue just liquidized. And I didn't even know because my wedding coordinator took care of it and pieced it back together. Once again, it was a DIY that just failed and I didn't even know until the day was over. That is something that, you know, I could have gotten professionally made or just kind of printed out a sign instead. But it's okay. Like, no hard feelings towards DIY, just it didn't work out for me. And so if you're not an expert in DIY, I do recommend you just put the extra money into quality pieces that you know are going to hold up. Lastly, favors. We didn't do favors. I feel like a lot of people spend hundreds of dollars on favors that people don't actually really want. Like, people do not want keychains that say just married and then your initials on it. People don't want that shit. So instead, we spent just a little bit of money making sure that people had beautiful paper fans for the ceremony since it was outside. I didn't hear any complaints about people not getting favors. I know it's traditional, but we spent extra money giving everyone a psychic reading, so that in itself is kind of a favor. But I also have no regrets. Like, I feel like favors are often forgotten at the tables. They're kind of unwanted unless they're edible. And so we were okay admitting that. So key takeaways, people absolutely loved, specifically the guests, like people loved Krispy Kreme for some reason, which is great because it saved me money. I think this is because people are already familiar with Krispy Kreme. They know what they like. It's a fan favorite. Knowing that there's Krispy Kreme, you can rely on that, right? You can rely on knowing that there's a good dessert item there. People loved the Wizard. It was super unique and people have never seen it before. It was another fan favorite and people were especially like touched emotionally just by the readings. It made them feel closer to their partners. It made them feel just cozy, and it made them feel connected to the wedding, to the people around them, to the Wizard. It was just overall a really, really lovely thing for guests to experience. Lastly, and I didn't even mention this, we had a coordinated first dance. We spent several days in dance lessons learning a waltz, and people were enamored by the dance. Even through one or two tiny slip-ups, people were absolutely just like smiling and cheering, and people really enjoyed that. We received a ton of good feedback, and so I do think that entertainment is a really solid thing to invest into your wedding. So would I change anything? No, I wouldn't change anything. In my opinion, it feels to me like I had the wedding of the century. Like, I absolutely loved my wedding. It was a complete dream. It went so smoothly, and all of the hard work that I put in for 2 years leading up to it was all worth it. I saw it all come to life. My vision for the day was completed the day of the wedding, and it felt like a really beautiful conclusion. I think it's important to know that there is a guarantee that something will happen weird at your wedding. Something will go wrong. We did have like weird guests and just little slip-ups like the board melting, but even through that, we had such a good time, and most of the guests at our wedding were absolutely amazing and positive, and it just made our day, and it was a wedding that I will never forget. So no, I don't think I would change anything. All right, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope I answered some of your questions just when you're getting started in wedding planning. I wish you tons of luck. It is exciting, it's anxiety inducing, it's stressful, but it's all wonderful. It's gonna be a really great just era of your life, and I hope you have the most beautiful, magical wedding ever. All right, thank y'all so much for watching my video. If you want to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get more notifications every single time that I post. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.